Peter Parker is sitting alone on a rooftop. He has no billionaire backing him. He has no Avengers. He doesn't even have an apartment with a working radiator. And nobody, not a single person on Earth, remembers his real name. That's where he is before Brand New Day starts. Now imagine the sky above him cracks open like a wound, and a bloodied teenager in a torn blue uniform drops through it, slams through a fire escape, and hits a frozen pavement below. The kid on the roof is Peter. The kid in the alley is Yuji Itadori. This is what happens when two kids built from the same tragedy end up in the same city at the worst possible moment. They're both inherently optimistic kids who were suddenly handed massive world-altering power. They both live by a strict moral code heavily influenced by the death of a figure in their life. For Yuji, that's Grandpa Itadori. For Peter, that's Aunt May in No Way Home. They're both burdened by the responsibility of saving everyone, often at the expense of their own mental and physical health. But to understand how this crossover happens, we've got to establish the exact timeline for both characters. For Peter Parker, we're sitting firmly in the immediate aftermath of Spider-Man No Way Home. It's the era where Peter's identity is erased, his supporting cast is gone, and he goes back to basics. He's broke, living in a tiny terrible apartment, studying for his GED, and fighting street-level crime. He's grieving the death of Aunt May, cut off from MJ and Ned. He's operating purely on survivor's guilt and an unwavering sense of duty. For Yuji Itadori, we're pulling him directly from the aftermath of the Shibuya incident. This is crucial because it's one of the lowest points of Yuji's life up till that point. He's just witnessed the horrific deaths of his mentor Nanami and his closest friend Nobara. Well, he thinks so. He's battered, his spirit is severely fractured, and he's carrying the immense guilt of Sukuna's massacre in Shibuya. So how do they meet? It comes down to the botched spell from the climax of No Way Home. When Doctor Strange cast the final rooms of Kofkol to make the world forget Peter Parker, he sealed the massive cracks in the multiverse. But magic is volatile. In this scenario, as the multiversal rift slams shut, a tiny localized anomaly occurs. A residual vacuum effect pulls one single entity from a parallel universe where magic operates through negative emotion rather than cosmic energy. Yuji is mid-battle, operating on adrenaline when the space around him distorts. The sky shatters like glass, and he's aggressively pulled through the void. He doesn't get a dramatic landing. He falls out of the sky over Queens, crashing through a rusted fire escape and landing in a dumpster filled with frozen trash. Up on the rooftop, Peter's spider sense goes wild. It's important to understand how Peter's spider sense interacts with cursed energy. Spider sense typically warns Peter of physical danger, a bullet trajectory, a falling building, a punch from the Green Goblin. But cursed energy is literally weaponized negative emotion. When Yuji crashes into the universe, Peter doesn't just sense danger. He feels a wave of pure dread. It feels like static electricity crawling under his skin. Peter immediately dives off the building, swinging down into the dark, snowy alleyway. He lands silently on the edge of the dumpster, expecting to find a new supervillain. Instead, he finds a teenager his own age, covered in blood, shivering in the cold, and desperately trying to catch his breath. When Yuji climbs out of the garbage, he's disoriented. The last thing he remembers is a subway station in Shibuya. Now he's in a freezing, snow-covered alleyway that looks nothing like Tokyo. As Yuji pulls himself upright, something small and dark slides out through the tear in his uniform and clinks against the pavement. It's a cracked finger bone, roughly the length of a thumb, and it radiates a faint rot. It's not a Sukuna finger, it's something lesser, a cursed tool fragment, caught in the dimensional rift and dragged through with him. Peter watches it hit the ground. His spider sense pings, low and wrong, like a smoke alarm. He steps forward, picks it up with two fingers, and drops it into the small zippered pocket on his belt. Evidence. He doesn't know what it is yet, but he doesn't want it to just be sitting in an alley in Queens. Before Yuji can even process his surroundings, a group of local thugs looking to score some quick cash corner him. They saw him fall and figured he might have something valuable. They pull knives and a handgun. In Yuji's mind, he's still in war mode. He's still operating under the assumption that everything around him is a threat. The lead mugger steps forward, demanding Yuji's wallet. Yuji doesn't speak a word of English. He just sees the weapon. Yuji steps into the mugger's guard with superhuman speed. He doesn't use cursed energy. He just uses raw strength. He grabs the mugger's wrist, twists the gun away, and delivers a brutal front kick that sends the grown man flying 15 feet through the air, crashing hard into a brick wall. The man slumps to the ground, instantly unconscious. Up on the wall, Peter's eyes go wide behind his lenses. He's fought super soldiers like Captain America and aliens like Thanos, but seeing a regular looking kid generate that much raw physical force without a mechanical suit or a serum is genuinely jarring. The other muggers panic and raise their knives. Before they can swing, Peter acts. Two streams of web fluid shoot out, pinning the mugger's hands to the brick walls. Peter drops down into the alley, landing in his classic superhero crouch between Yuji and the criminals. "Hey man," Peter says, holding his hands up defensively. "I think that's enough. You hit him so hard his ancestors felt it." Yuji stares at the guy in the red and blue spandex. He doesn't understand his words, but he recognizes the posture. It's a fighter stance. Yuji assumes this is some new type of cursed user. Yuji charges. This brief skirmish is where we see the physical limits of both characters tested. Yuji throws a massive right hook. Peter's spider sense flares, and he easily dodges backward, expecting the kid to be slow, but Yuji's momentum is unnatural. He instantly closes the gap, throwing a flurry of strikes. Peter is forced to block. When Yuji's fist connects with Peter's forearms, Peter actually grunts in pain. Well, okay, this kid's strong. Peter mutters to himself. He shoots a web directly at Yuji's chest, trying to restrain him. The webbing sticks. Peter yanks the web line, trying to pull Yuji off balance. Instead, Yuji plants his feet, grabs the web line with his bare hands, and pulls Peter towards him. It's a literal tug of war, and Peter is genuinely shocked to realize that this kid's raw strength is actually rivaling his own spider-enhanced muscles. Before the fight can escalate into anything lethal, the distant wail of NYPD sirens echoes through the streets. Peter knows he can't afford to get caught by the cops, especially not now. He looks at Yuji, sees the exhaustion exhaustion and fresh blood on the kid's face and makes a split-second decision. This isn't a villain, it's a lost kid. Peter shoots a web at a nearby fire escape, grabs Yuji by the collar of his uniform, and launches them both onto the rooftop just as the police cruisers turn the corner. Peter sneaks Yuji through the window of his tiny rundown apartment in Queens. It's a miserable living space. There's a mattress on the floor, a police scanner crackling on a cheap desk, and a sewing machine covered in spare red and blue fabric. It's the definition of rock bottom. The immediate problem is a language barrier. Yuji only speaks Japanese. Peter speaks English and a tiny bit of high school Spanish. But Peter is a genius. He digs through a cardboard box labeled Stark Tech Residuals. It's a box of broken gadgets he managed to scavenge before the Department of Damage Control seized all of Tony Stark's assets. He finds an old cracked earpiece translator used during the Avengers International missions. He spends 20 minutes furiously soldering wires together at his desk while Yuji sits awkwardly on the entire mattress, icing his bruised face with a bag of frozen peas. Peter tosses the earpiece to Yuji and taps the side of his own mask. Testing, testing, can you understand me? Yuji jumps slightly as the English words are instantly translated into Japanese in his ear. Yeah, I can hear you. What is this place? Are you a sorcerer? I'm Spider-Man, Peter replies. And I'm pretty sure I'm not a sorcerer, unless you count the time I accidentally broke the universe with a wizard. Who are you? Where are you from? This is where the emotional core of the crossover begins. They sit on the floor of the freezing apartment and share their stories. Yuji explains the concept of cursed spirits, Jujutsu High, and the Shibuya incident. He explains that he's essentially a child soldier fighting an invisible war against humanity's negative emotions. Peter listens quietly. He doesn't dismiss it. After fighting aliens in space and meeting alternate versions of himself, the idea of invisible emotion monsters doesn't even crack the top 10 weirdest things he's heard. Peter explains his own situation. He explains the Avengers, the blip, and the spell that made everyone forget him. He explains that he's completely alone, trying to protect a city that doesn't even know his name. They're just two kids sitting in a dark room. They don't have mentors anymore. They don't have backup. They realize very quickly that they're the exact same. They're both functioning entirely on the belief that if they don't save the people in front of them, no one else will. So, Peter says, tossing Yuji a protein bar, you fight curses, I fight muggers and purple aliens. Until we figure out how to get you home, I guess you're stuck in New York. Yuji takes a bite of the bar. There's a lot of negative energy out there, he says quietly. I can feel it. Somewhere behind Yuji's eyes, a four-armed king was watching all of this. He saw no sorcerers worth killing. He decided to wait. Before they can team up, Peter's scientific curiosity takes over. He needs to understand exactly what cursed energy is. He hooks up a makeshift spectrometer and asks Yuji to channel a small amount of energy into his fist. Yuji concentrates. The familiar blue aura of cursed energy flares around his hand. Peter stares at his monitors. The readings are flat. This makes zero sense, Peter mutters, tapping the screen. It's not registered on the electromagnetic spectrum. It's not emitting radiation. It's not thermal. It's defying the laws of thermodynamics. It's not science, Yuji explains, watching the blue sparks dance across his knuckles. It's negative emotion. It's anger, fear, grief. It leaks out of humans and pools together. Peter rubs his temple. Okay, so it's magic. Great. I hate magic, but my spider sense reacts to it. When you do that, it feels like an alarm bell going off in the base of my skull. This creates a fascinating dynamic. In the MCU, ordinary humans cannot see cursed spirits. Even Peter, with all his enhanced senses, cannot visually see a curse. He can only sense the overwhelming danger they present. If a curse attacks, Peter is essentially fighting an invisible ghost. He has to rely 100% on his spider sense to dodge, while Yuji has to be the primary attacker because only cursed energy can exercise a curse. But Peter isn't useless in this scenario. He realizes that his web fluid is a physical substance. If Yuji channels his cursed energy into Peter's web shooters, the webbing itself becomes a cursed tool. They spend the next few days testing this. Yuji infuses the web cartridges with his energy. When Peter shoots the webs, they glow with a faint blue aura. Peter can now trap and restrain invisible curses, allowing Yuji to close the distance and deliver the finishing blow. For the first few weeks, the duo sticks to street-level crime. Peter is trying to keep a low profile, and he knows that unleashing Yuji on a villain would draw too much attention to the authorities. They stop carjackings, break up drug rings, and prevent armed robberies. But there's a massive learning curve for Yuji. In Yuji's world, the enemies are monsters. You don't pull your punches against a curse. You hit it with the intention of completely obliterating it. If Yuji uses his full strength on a regular human mugger in Queens, he's going to accidentally punch a hole straight through the guy's chest. Peter has to actively teach Yuji the art of restraint. During a shootout at a warehouse in the Bronx, Peter is swinging from the rafters, webbing up thugs and disarming them. Yuji is on the ground. A thug charges Yuji with a baseball bat. Yuji instinctively drops into a combat stance, his fist pulling back, a spark of cursed energy flaring. No energy! Peter yells from the ceiling. They're just regular guys, Yuji. You hit him with that, you'll kill him. Yuji pulls his punch at the last second, tapping the thug on the forehead with just enough force to knock him out cold. Yuji looks at his trembling hands. It's difficult for him to switch off his lethal instincts. I'm used to fighting for my life, Yuji whispers, the trauma of Shibuya weighing on him. Peter lands next to him, putting a hand on his shoulder. I know, but here, we don't cross that line. We save everyone, even the bad guys. It's exactly the lesson Yuji needs. In the Jujutsu world, Yuji is treated like a weapon, a vessel to be executed, but Peter treats him like a kid who deserves to be a hero. But while they're busy stopping petty crime, something is forming in the dark underneath the city, and it's moving fast. Within days of Yuji's arrival, something began forming in the abandoned subway tunnels beneath Manhattan. Cursed spirits are born from negative human emotion. In the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, Japan has a monopoly on cursed energy due to Tengen's barriers, but Yuji's arrival fundamentally shattered the dimensional barrier, allowing the laws of cursed energy to bleed into the MCU. And New York in the MCU MCU is the most traumatized location on the planet. The city has been invaded, nearly dropped from orbit, and watched half its population disintegrate in the span of 5 years. The specific terror of that, the fear of the sky opening, of losing someone in the time it takes to blink, never left. It sank into the concrete. It pooled in the dark. That concentrated grief starts condensing in the tunnels beneath Manhattan. It mutates and rapidly evolves. Because the negative energy is so dense and untouched by any sorcerer, it doesn't form a regular curse. It forms an unregistered special grade cursed spirit, a grotesque amalgamation of alien armor plating, human faces pressed into its skin like fossils, and twisted concrete fused into bone. It's a literal embodiment of New York's collective PTSD. This energy feels the pain of the Punisher, the trauma of Peter Parker, everything the New York Sanctum Sanctorum had to go through. It feels Loki. It feels Daredevil. It feels Kingpin and the casualties around him. New York really is the central hub of pain, and standard MCU heroes are entirely useless against it. You can't shoot a curse with a repulsor blast. You can't hit it with a vibranium shield. If you can't perceive it, you can't fight it. It's going to keep growing until someone stops it. And right now, there are only 2 people in this universe who can even see it coming. The situation goes from bad to catastrophic when a familiar face gets involved. Mark Gargan. We saw him briefly in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's a ruthless criminal with a massive scorpion tattoo on his neck, holding a grudge against Spider-Man for putting him in prison. Gargan is out on parole, operating in the criminal underworld, desperately looking for a way to get his revenge on the wall crawler. Gargan is running a black market weapons deal in the abandoned subway tunnels when his crew is suddenly slaughtered by an invisible force. Gargan is thrown against a wall, his arm shattered, watching his men get torn apart by nothing. The New York curse doesn't kill Gargan immediately. Curses are drawn to negative emotion, and Gargan is radiating pure hatred, malice, and a desire for revenge. And then his fingers find something on the tunnel floor, something small and dark, something one of his men must have picked up somewhere, sold as a weird alien artifact, passed down through the black market supply chain until it ended up in a crate on a subway platform. It's a cracked finger bone, roughly the length of a thumb, and it pulses with a sickly cold energy. Back in Queens, Peter Parker is sitting at his desk when he absently checks his belt pocket. The pocket is empty. He has a vague memory of setting the thing down on a bench during an overnight patrol a few nights ago. He'd meant to go back for it. He forgot. As Gargan lies bleeding on the subway tracks, desperate for survival, the New York curse forces a cursed object into his mouth. The reaction is explosive. Gargan's body rejects and then absorbs the cursed energy. Because his soul is so deeply twisted by hatred, he becomes the perfect vessel. He doesn't just gain strength, he physically mutates. His spine elongates, tearing through his jacket to form a bone-like tail dripping with toxic cursed energy. His eyes glow with a sickly purple light. He becomes a human curse hybrid, a literal scorpion. He now possesses superhuman strength that rivals Spider-Man's, but his attacks are laced with lethal cursed energy. He can see curses, he can command the smaller ones spawned in the tunnels, and he knows exactly who he wants to kill. Before Scorpion can launch his attack, the massive spike in multiversal energy finally catches the attention of the Sorcerer Supreme. Doctor Strange is sitting in the Sanctum Sanctorum in Greenwick Village, when the Eye of Agamotto begins to glow furiously. Technically, at this point, Doctor Strange should be in the Dark Dimension with Clea, but since that storyline will never go anywhere, let's retcon it and bring him back here. Strange recognizes the dimensional tear. He opens a portal and steps directly into Peter's crappy apartment. Peter and Yuji are eating cheap bodega sandwiches when a sparkling orange ring opens in the middle of the room. Strange steps through, his cloak billowing. "Spider-Man," Strange says, not remembering Peter's civilian identity. "You have a massive anomaly in your living room." Yuji immediately drops his sandwich and takes a defensive stance. He senses the immense power rolling off Strange. Wait, Peter yells, jumping in between them. "Doc, it's fine. He's a good guy. He's from another universe, but he's helping me." Strange narrows his eyes, ignoring Peter, and stares directly into Yuji's soul. Strange's magical perception allows him to see what Peter can't. He sees a horrifying, overwhelming darkness resting inside the body. He sees the silhouette of a four-armed demon with a twisted smile, and unlike anything Strange has encountered before, it stares directly back at him. "He's a vessel for something catastrophic," Strange says, his voice dropping half a register. "That boy's carrying a demonic presence that could rival the darkest entities in the multiverse. He doesn't belong here. We have to get rid of him immediately." Strange raises his hands, forming glowing mandalas of eldritch magic. He prepares to cast a spell that will forcibly shove Yuji back through the multiverse. Then, everything in the room goes cold. The black tattoos spread across Yuji's face in a single second, like ink dropped in water. 2 extra eyes open beneath his normal ones. The air pressure drops. The police scanner on Peter's desk slides across the desk by itself and falls to the floor. Sukuna rolls his neck slowly and looks at Doctor Strange with the specific kind of amusement reserved for things he considers completely beneath him. "A wizard," Sukuna says. His voice is layered, deep, and carries a resonance that vibrates in the chest rather than the ears. He doesn't raise his hands. He doesn't move at all. He just looks at the spinning mandalas with something close to pity. "You've built your power on borrowed light. Cosmic, dimensional, external. You reach outside yourself for every drop of it." He tilts his head. "I am the source. There's nothing in this universe or any other you could pull from that reservoir that would stop what I would do to you in the next 3 seconds. Lower your hands, wizard. I won't say it twice. Strange doesn't lower his hands, but he doesn't cast either, because he realizes, with the particular cold clarity of someone who has seen genuinely apocalyptic things, that he isn't looking at a demon or a parasite. He looks at something that predates the frameworks he still uses to fight. His mandalas are still spinning. His hands are locked in position, and the thing wearing this boy's face is entirely right, that he hasn't thrown the spell yet. The standoff holds for a beat that feels much longer than it is. Then, Yuji slaps his own face. Hard. It's not a clean reclamation. The tattoos cling. Yuji's jaw is clenched so tight his teeth are grinding. You can see the effort in every muscle of his neck. The same effort it takes to hold something back with your bare hands when it's actively pushing the other direction. The extra eyes flicker and close one at a time, like lights going out. The last tattoo fades. Yuji stands there, panting, looking genuinely terrified by himself. He looks at Strange. You can't send me back yet. He gestures at the window, at the city beyond it. There's a massive curse forming under the city. It's my fault it's here. I have to fix it before I leave. Peter steps up beside Yuji. He's right, sir. My spider sense has been going crazy all day. Something huge is coming. Let us handle it. Once it's done, you can send him home. Strange lowers his hands. He doesn't know who's under the mask, but he feels a sense of trust. He looks at Peter for a long moment, then back at Yuji. He respects Spider-Man, even without knowing who's under the mask. You have exactly 2 hours, Strange warns. If that entity takes control, or you fail to contain this threat, I will have to get involved. Strange steps backward through the portal, leaving the 2 teenagers alone in the apartment. The clock is ticking. So they suit up. Peter pulls his mask over his face, double-checking his cursed-infused web shooters. Yuji tightens the red hood of his uniform. Before they swing out the window, Yuji stops. He's staring out at the city through the smudged glass, and his expression is hard to read. Not fear exactly, something older. What do you see out there? Peter asks. Yuji is quiet for a second. Down on the fire escape below, something dark and formless is dragging itself along the iron railing. It has too many mouths, then it's gone. Things you don't want to know about, Yuji says. He steps back from the window. There are more of them every hour. The big one is pulling them towards it. We need to move. Peter nods. He can feel it too. The low, constant alarm of his Peter tingle. The way the dread has been building all day like a pressure change before a storm. Before they go, they share a quiet, defining character moment. This is where the themes of both franchises perfectly overlap. Are you scared? Peter asks. Yuji looks at his scarred hands. He thinks about Shibuya. He thinks about the people he couldn't save. I'm terrified, Yuji admits. Every time I fight, I feel like a piece of me breaks. I'm just a cog in a machine. My only purpose is to exercise curses until I eventually die. Peter stops. He walks over to Yuji. In the MCU, Peter has lost everything. He lost Tony Stark. He lost Aunt May. He lost his best friends. Ben and his parents were never in the picture. He completely understands the feeling of being chewed up by the responsibility of power. You're not a cog, Yuji, Peter says firmly. You're a person. And yeah, we lose people. We get beat down. It hurts so much you feel like you can't breathe. But we don't do this to die. We do this so other people get to live. You don't have to be a weapon. You just have to be you. It's the exact validation Yuji desperately needed to hear. In his universe, he's constantly told he's a ticking time bomb. Here, a superhero is telling him that he has worth. Yuji nods, a small, genuine smile. Let's go save the city. The climax takes place in the heart of the city, Times Square. Scorpion doesn't hide in the shadows. His mind is warped by the cursed spirit, driving him to cause as much destruction as possible to draw Spider-Man out. He bursts from the subway grates, a terrifying hybrid of man, mechanical armor, and rotting bone. The toxic cursed energy dripping from his tail melts the pavement. Civilians are screaming, running in panic as the invisible lesser curses swarm the streets, feeding on their terror. The ordinary people sprinting past can't see what's between them. They just feel the cold. They feel the dread. They don't know why they're running. They just know they need to. Spider-Man and Yuji arrive, dropping from the billboards. The choreography of this fight is incredible. Scorpion lashes out with his bone tail, aiming directly for Peter. The Peter tingle flares. Peter backflips, shooting 2 streams of cursed webbing that wrap around the tail. The blue cursed energy in the webs neutralizes the toxicity, allowing Peter to yank the villain off balance. Now Yuji, Peter yells. Yuji uses the distraction. He sprints forward and leaps into the air, his fist engulfed in maximum cursed energy. He brings his fist down directly on Scorpion's armored face. The impact is deafening, but Gargan's cursed mutation absorbs the blow. He counters, grabbing Yuji by the throat and slamming him into a yellow taxi cab. Peter swings in, delivering a swinging dropkick to Gargan's chest, forcing him to drop Yuji. You okay? Peter asks. Yuji spits out a mouthful of blood. He's tough. The armor is heavily reinforced with cursed energy. Regular hits aren't going to pierce it. I need to hit him with everything I've got at the exact same time. Peter nods. He understands the physics of it. You need maximum kinetic transfer. I'll lock him down. You wind up the pitch. Peter checks his watch mid-swing. 8 minutes, Yuji. Strange isn't bluffing. Yuji's jaw tightens. He nods once. The fight escalates. Peter pushes his agility to the limit. He's flipping between Scorpion's frantic attacks, firing webs, sticking the villain's limbs to the surrounding vehicles and light poles. He's orchestrating the battlefield, using his webs to funnel Gargan into a specific unavoidable position. Gargan roars, his cursed energy flaring, snapping the webs. He charges Peter. Yuji! Peter screams, launching himself backward. Yuji plants his feet and begins to clear his mind. The trauma of Shibuya, the fear of Sukuna, the isolation of the multiverse. He pushes it all away, funneling everything towards a single point of impact. He feels Sukuna move in his mind. Sukuna doesn't come out. It's not a takeover. It's just a hand on the inside of the door, pressing, testing the lock. It happens at the exact worst moment, because it always does. The second Yuji needs complete stillness, complete focus. There's a tremor through his own soul that has nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with something ancient and a muse deciding to remind him who lives in there, and everything to do with Sukuna, who's inside taunting him. Yuji's concentration fractures for half a second. He stumbles. Scorpion sees it and lunges. Peter shouts something. It doesn't matter. Yuji catches himself. He doesn't push Sukuna back with willpower, because that never works. He just stops fighting it. He lets the darkness sit there, acknowledged, and he turns away from it, like Nanami once told him. The weight doesn't go away. You just decide it's not going to stop you right now. He focuses entirely on the single point of impact. His cursed energy flows, synchronizing with his physical movement. Space distorts. The ambient sound of the city drops out, leaving total silence. Yuji throws a straight right punch, aiming dead center at Scorpion's mutated chest plate. The physical impact lands. Less than a second later, the cursed energy violently follows. Black flash. A massive explosion of black and red lightning erupts from Yuji's fist. The concussive force shatters every glass billboard in Times Square. The shockwave ripples through the air, obliterating the cursed spirit possessing Gargan. Peter watches in absolute awe. His scientific mind can barely comprehend what just happened. He just watched a kid manipulate space and kinetic energy on a quantum level through sheer willpower. Gargan's mutation dissolves into ash. The bone tail crumbles. He drops to the ground, unconscious, reverting to a normal beaten human criminal. The lesser curses in the area evaporate instantly without their leader. The city is quiet. They won. A sparking orange portal opens in the middle of the ruined street. Doctor Strange steps through, assessing the damage. He looks at the unconscious Gargan, then at Yuji, whose fist is still smoking from the black flash. Yuji stares at the portal. "You neutralized the anomaly," Strange says, sounding mildly impressed. He waves his hand, and the portal expands, revealing the dark, rainy streets of Shibuya on the other side. "It is time for you to go. The rift is closing." Yuji stares at the portal. On the other side is his reality. It's a reality where his mentor is dead. His friends are broken, and he's hunted by his own society. Gojo is trapped. Toto lost his arm. Everything sucks. It's a living hell. If he stays in the MCU, he could be a superhero. He could fight alongside Peter. He could join the Young Avengers. He wouldn't be a targeted vessel anymore. The temptation to run away is massive. Peter walks up beside him. He knows exactly what Yuji is thinking. "You don't have to go back," Peter says quietly. "You could stay here. We make a pretty good team." Yuji looks at Peter. He realizes that Peter didn't run away when his life fell apart. Peter stayed, put the mask back on, and continued to fight for his city. Yuji smiles. It's a sad smile, but it's genuine. "I can't stay," Yuji says, turning towards the portal. "My friends are still fighting. If I run away now, everything they died for means nothing. I have to finish my job." It's the ultimate display of Yuji's character. He chooses to walk back into his own trauma because it's the right thing to do. Yuji steps through the portal. The orange sparks close behind him in a flash of light, leaving Peter Parker standing alone in the snowy streets of Times Square. Whether you're exercising curses in Tokyo or webbing up muggers in Queens, the job is exactly the same. You take the hits so the rest of the world doesn't have to.